Well, greetings, everyone, and welcome to a very special online event today. It's called Experience Sacred Breath, Ancient Techniques to Elevate Your Health and Consciousness from a Renowned Western Pranayama Master. My name is Stephen Dinan. I'm the founder and president of the Shift Network, and I'm thrilled to be hosting today's program for a number of reasons. First of all, because breath really propelled my spiritual path in a deep way. And so I'm excited to learn from one of the world's masters and in really understanding the science and art of working with breath as a vehicle for evolving consciousness. I'm also excited because our featured faculty is somebody that is really just the first time he taught for Shift, I was just struck by the depth of his wisdom and the warmth of his presence, and a true wisdom teacher. And it's always a pleasure and honor to host people who just emanate wisdom. So we're going to be here with Gary Kraftsow. He's the founder and director of the American Vinaya Yoga Institute, and he's taught for Shift before, and we're really delighted to have him back. So Gary, thank you so much for joining us.
It's an honor to be with you, Stephen. Thank you so much, and your community. As always, I'm grateful to have this opportunity to share with you.
Great. Well, we're going to dive in and get some really deep insights and practices around breath. And I also want to let everyone know that we do have a brand new program coming up with Gary called Sacred Breath that we'll share a little bit more about towards the end of the hour. So more to come if you want to dive deeper. So Gary, let's begin our journey of today with a bit about your journey and what brought you to pranayama and ancient breathing practices as really a vehicle for transformation, and what what have you learned about breath from that?
What a question. Well, I started this journey in the study of religion. When I was 19, I was brought to what was then called Madras, now Chennai, and I met Krishnamacharya and his son Deshikachar, who were famous yoga teachers. And I had gone to South India as part of a university program studying Shaivite Siddhanta, which is a South Indian Tantra tradition. But I had the opportunity to meet Krishnamacharya and then begin a serious study of yoga with his son Desikachar. And I originally came from the perspective of religion, so the understanding of the mind and the process of transformation and how to kind of realize the meaning and purpose of life. But they began to teach me yoga sadhana, yoga practice. And I had been a gymnast in high school. I wasn't coming to yoga for asana, which is the part of yoga that's most famous. But I was very much interested in the inner teachings of yoga, which have to do with the mind and meditation. And they taught me that the process of linking body and mind and spirit together is through the power of the breath. And so at a very young age, at 19, I was initiated into the practice of pranayama, not only the practice of pranayama, but the theory and philosophy behind it. So I began my study of pranayama at 19 years old, and I lived on and off in South India for about 4 years until about 1990. And then I began my career as a yoga teacher and yoga therapist. And the breath is probably the most potent tool, arguably the most potent tools of yoga sadhana are mantra japa and pranayama. Most of the community knows little about pranayama. More is known about mantra, or at least kirtan, which is a little different than mantra japa, but it's the chanting. So people know more about that, and most people know about asana, but very few people have have received authentic teachings about pranayama. It was a rather hidden science. So I was initiated in that practice since I was 19, and that was, gosh, it's 50 years ago. So I've been practicing pranayama regularly since I was initiated into the practice at 19 years old.
Well, that undoubtedly gives you some profound insights, 50 years of practice. So maybe I like what you said about the breath is the vehicle for uniting body, mind, and spirit, sort of, which is in the spirit of yoga, which means union. So how is it that breath acts as this kind of unifying current for all levels of our being?
Well, there's both a practical Western explanation, which I'll give, and then there's a more subtle esoteric explanation that comes from the tradition, which I will also share right now. So first and foremost, all of us have been breathing since our very first breath, and all of us will continue to breathe until our very last breath in this life. And that seems sort of silly and obvious, but actually it's interesting because that breath, most of our breath is controlled by our autonomic nervous system. We don't have to consciously breathe. But the respiratory system itself is unique in that it is the one system controlled by our autonomic nervous system that gives us that we have an ability to influence consciously. There's no other autonomic system that we can regulate consciously. Anybody can regulate it consciously. So there's a link between the mind and the respiratory system, and through the respiratory system, all of the rest of our physiology. So when we can consciously control our breath, we can influence our physiology primarily via the autonomic nervous system and influencing sympathetic, parasympathetic regulation. But in addition, the respiratory function is controlled principally by the diaphragm, but also that's the primary respiratory muscle, but there's secondary musculature, including the intercostals, the erector spina, the abdominal rectus, et cetera. So when we control the breath consciously, we're influencing our structure. So the breath influences our anatomy, it influences our physiology, and the relationship between the nose, the limbic brain, which is, in a layman's term, it's a longer discussion, kind of the seat of our emotions. So the limbic brain is sort of the interface between our physiology and our conscious mind. And so the pranayama techniques work at the level of the limbic brain. So they influence our emotions. We can use the pranayama not only to influence our structure and our physiology, but our changing emotional states and also our kind of thoughts. We can bring mental clarity. And then finally, the breath, we use the word in English to be inspired. So there's an idea of receiving something that's beyond the mind via the breath. The ancient Vedic people says that the practice of pranayama, which is a way of regulating the breath, is really about prana shakti. And although prana is not the breath, through breathing, we can regulate and influence prana. And prana is that, the tradition says, that comes from the realm of the spirit, let's say, and pervades the material plane. So by doing pranayama, we're not only able to influence our anatomy, our physiology, our changing emotional states, and our mental clarity, but we're able to attune to and tap into the spiritual dimension of life. And you actually see this in other traditions besides the Vedic tradition. You have a Hebrew word, ruach, the spirit, the breath. You have the chi in the Chinese ki in the Japanese system. Energy, breath, spirit, they're all kind of related. In the Latin, of course, spirit itself, inspire, expire means we've died, we've expired, but spiritus relates to the spirit that flows on the breath. So it's a very integrative practice, addressing the multidimensionality of who we are as human beings.
Really great overview, and I'd love to expand a little bit on what you were saying about the limbic system being able to influence both our emotional state and also mental clarity. And so when the breath is regulating through, it works on a deeper level than just conscious thought. So in terms of regulating the limbic system, so maybe share a little bit more about that circuit neurobiologically and like why working on the limbic harmonization, if you will, it really is so effective at optimizing us for all sorts of levels.
Well, it's an interesting discussion. There's a question, and it's in the new field of consciousness studies. What's the relationship between consciousness and the brain? And is consciousness itself an artifact of the brain, or is the brain an instrument of consciousness? Of course, in the yoga tradition, we say the brain is an instrument of consciousness. But when the brain is busy, it clouds consciousness. So we perceive through the mind via the senses the world around us. But if our brain is busy, if we have stress in our system, if we have reactions to changing relationships, changing things in our world around us, then we're identified and attached to this busyness in the brain. And so when we use pranayama techniques, we can bring the brain to a state of stillness and allow consciousness to sort of shine as it is without the distortion of the stress that's caused by our attachment and identification to the world around us. So we use these yoga practices, asana and pranayama. We kind of turn the metaphor, the poetry is we turn the body into a temple, and then we turn the being into the heart into the inner sanctum of the temple. But if the mind's busy, we're pulled up out of that, and we're in our brain and in the static and identification and reactions that go on in our daily life. So the practices, these inner practices, bring us to that inner stillness. Now, what has to happen in the inner stillness is sympathetic, parasympathetic balance, and stabilize, or what Patanjali says is tatahakshiyate prakasha varnam. So pranayama destroys that which clouds the mind. And so what happens in the limbic brain is that we come to the state of mental clarity and emotional balance. And the practices work with the nervous system and with consciousness in order to bring that limbic brain to that stillness. It's a little bit more technical and complicated. We'll get into it a little bit later, but I hope that makes some sense to you.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Let's talk a little bit about the relationship between sort of conscious practice, sort of having carved out time for pranayama to sort of practice, and then what happens with your baseline breathing through the rest of the day.
That's an interesting question. I sometimes tell my students that it's like if you're a tennis pro, when you're practicing, you might practice lots of forehands and lots of backhands and serves. But when you're in the match, you're not thinking about that. You're just responding. You've trained your body to respond. With pranayama, when we practice pranayama, sometimes I give the image like we're cultivating a conscious relationship with our breath. And our inhale is different than our exhale. And most of us don't really know anything about our inhale and exhale until we pay attention to them. So it's sort of like I sometimes say you think of them as your children if you're a parent. Think of them as your children. So pay attention, listen to your inhale, see what it's telling you, listen to your exhale, work with it, lengthen your breath, feel what happens, explore what happens when you stop the flow of the breath after inhale, or you stop the flow of the breath after exhale, and see what goes on in your whole system by paying attention. But then when you're in life, you don't have to think about it because you've trained yourself and your body naturally responds because of that training. So practice is about practice. But what it does is it trains you for the contest, it trains you for the tournament of life. You don't have to think about it. You don't become more obsessed with things. You become less obsessed because you've trained your body. So you'll respond as needed in any given situation.
Makes a lot of sense. So let's go into some of the actual forms, and maybe instead of starting with a demonstration, maybe share a little bit about some of the types of pranayama practices and why they're beneficial, the lengthening of breath, the creating of different kinds of circuits, stoppages, and like why this sort of full range of different practices is helpful to explore.
Yeah. So first, let me give you a context, which is that most of us, and this is a general statistic, it's not a precise, and it varies with individuals, but we've been breathing, as I said, since the moment of birth. There's sort of an anecdotal sort of question from the tradition, which is how many breaths have you taken so far in your life? And of course, nobody can answer that. Nobody's kept track of it. But most of us take somewhere between 3 or 4 seconds per cycle of breath. That is inhale and exhale. If you take this for ease of mathematics, you take a 3-second inhale, exhale in your daily life. That's about 20 breaths in 1 minute. You can't really begin pranayama until you can slow that down. Like when we begin practicing, maybe instead of taking 20 breaths a minute, maybe we're taking 6 breaths a minute, like when we do asana. So we inhale 5 seconds and exhale 5 seconds. So that's 10 seconds for 1 breath cycle. So in normal life, 20 breaths a minute. Now we're taking 6 breaths a minute. When we begin pranayama practice, maybe we're taking 3 breaths a minute or 2 breaths a minute. And when we then get experience in pranayama, maybe we can take 1 breath a minute. So in order to begin pranayama, you have to be able to lengthen what we call your breath threshold, your ability to take longer, each breath cycle, which is from 1 inhale to 1 exhale, make it long enough to begin to change the pattern of breathing. So the first step is to expand your breath threshold, to be able to inhale and exhale longer. And then you can begin to explore different ratios, that is proportional relationships between the different parts of the breath. because as you change, the four parts of the breath are inhalation, what we call retention, holding the breath in after inhalation, exhalation, and then what we call suspension, or holding the breath out after exhalation. So when you have an ability to lengthen the flow of breath, then you can begin to explore creating different ratios, different proportional relationships between these four parts of the breath. And that's where all of these physiological benefits come from. In addition, you asked about different kinds of pranayama. There's ways of controlling the flow of the breath with valving. I've created a valve by partially constricting my glottis, which is what you do when you speak, actually. So then you can make the breath longer. It's a way of regulating the speed and volume as you breathe in or out. And there are other valves which you create with at your nostril with your fingers or at your tongue. And these different valves have different energetic effects as well. So ratios have different effects, different techniques, valving techniques have different effects. And finally, and perhaps I should have said it first, the directional flow of the breath, which we'll do an exercise with. You know, whether you inhale, expand your chest, and then protrude your navel, or inhale, protrude your navel, and then expand your chest. You know, how you control the inhale, how you control the muscles that you use to control the exhale. So there's directional flow, ratio, different proportional relationships between the four parts of the breath, and some other things in relation to that, which is getting a little more complicated. And then the different techniques of pranayama. And they're not random. They all have different structural effects. Inhale has a different structural effect than exhale. Different ratios have different energetic effects, different impact on our emotional state, different impact on our mind. All of these techniques, when you understand them, then you can choose the one that's most useful for you in any given situation or circumstance. For example, if you're stressed, which is a lot of people are stressed these days, certain ratios and certain techniques are ideal for calming stress. If you have fatigue, lack of energy, certain ratios and certain techniques will be more stimulating and energizing, revitalizing. So it's a complex science worthy of learning because you can really use it to bring yourself to a state of balance and clarity, energy, and deep relaxation.
So it sounds like you get to a stage where you really are able to self-diagnose where there's imbalances in the system, and there's always a pranayama practice that can help to rebalance.
That's exactly right. And it's very, sadly, even asana, even I would say that, in terms of the population of people that are enjoying and practicing asana, their subtle effects are not that well understood, but much more understood. Pranayama is much more hidden. There are very few authentic lineages of transmission from the ancient times to modern times of this ancient art of pranayama.
Well, I think you've created a great overview and some great context for understanding the different practices. I think now would be a good time to do some demonstrations that people can join you in.
Well, I'd be happy to share something. What I'll do, and I think that one of the things that I thought about, that there's some, I want to say this respectfully, misunderstanding about correct breathing. In our lineage, it's not that one way is correct and another way is incorrect. These different ways of breathing have different effects. They all could be appropriate in some context or other. So it's not that one is correct and one is incorrect. One may be more useful than another in a different given time. But there is a classic idea that comes from that is not sourced from, but it's mentioned in Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna tells Arjuna, inhale is when prana is offered to apana, and exhale is when apana is offered to prana. And I'll explain that in our course. I won't take time now. But so and it's different than the common people think about it. So I wanted to share that just as a way of, what do you mean it isn't that way? Oh, it could be this way. And so you can experience the difference. So we'll do a directional flow practice, okay? And I will teach you the classic default kind of breathing. It's not the correct one. It's the classic one that's used, but we can use different kinds of directional flows to have different effects. So I want to make sure that's contextually clear. So we'll do about maybe 8 minutes of breathing now, if that's okay. And I'll set you up for it. So here's what I'm going to ask you all to do. Please kindly come to a comfortable, if you're not already, comfortable seated posture. Take a moment. And then when you're ready, just close your eyes so that you can internalize your attention. And because the vehicle for the breath, or the way that we relate to the breath, is through our body, I want to begin by just bringing your attention through your body in a particular way. So take a moment now and feel the contact of your sit bones, what's called ischial tuberosities, with whatever you're sitting on. And I want to, in yoga, we use visualization. This will not be a visualization exercise. This is actually interoception. So when I say feel your sit bones, what I mean is identify the signals returning to your brain from your sit bones. And as soon as you feel them, now bring your attention to the base of your spine, what's called the sacrum. And just wait there for a moment, listening. And you'll be able to differentiate those signals that are returning to your brain from your sacrum. It's like a little buzzing. And as you start to feel that, then I'd like you to move your awareness up into the lumbar spine. That's 5 vertebral bodies. That L5 rises off the sacrum. And if you're quiet, you're still, this is a focusing device, you'll actually begin to feel sensations of your low back. In the beginning, many of you won't feel each vertebral body. Those who can, it's like you're climbing a ladder. You're walking up L5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Or just feel the curved segment of the lumbar spine. And as you feel that, then it's going to change when you get to the top of the lumbar, that's L1, and then move into T12, the 12th thoracic vertebra. And just feel as intimately as possible your mid-upper back, your thoracic spine, as it rises off the lumbar. And as you move your attention, the sensations are different in the thoracic. You'll also sense or attune to your ribs that connect to the processes of the thoracic vertebra, and they wrap around and join the sternum in the front of your chest. So take a moment and walk your awareness as intimately as possible all the way up your thoracic curve. Notice it's a different curve than your lumbar curve segment. And towards the top, you'll sense your shoulder girdle and attached arms. And then, and it'll be a little harder to feel at the top of the thoracic spine, T1, and then above is C7, the 7th cervical vertebra. There's 7 small cervical vertebrae that rise off of the thoracic spine. So now you're just feeling as best as you can, as intimately as possible, the curve of your cervical spine, all the way up to the top, and it's like to that cave at the top of the mountain of your spine, the brainstem. So you felt these spinal curves. Now, holding that in the backdrop of your awareness, bring your attention to the tip of your nose and just feel the fact of the breath coming in and out. Notice it's been coming in and out, as I said, since the moment of your birth. But now bring your conscious attention to the flow of the breath in and out of your nose. Those who understand ujjayi, that partial constriction of the glottis, please apply it so you have a valve that will help you control speed and volume of air coming in and out. And now I'm going to begin to ask you, as I describe what to do, just begin to progressively deepen your inhale and lengthen your exhale. Don't push too much, but like if your normal breathing was about 3-second inhale, exhale, now see if you can make your inhale 4 seconds. The whole 4 seconds, just one inhale, and your whole 4 seconds, just one exhale. See if you can inhale 4 and exhale 4. And we're going to change this, but I want to give you some, keep doing it now. In fact, why don't you do that a couple of breaths, and then if you can, make inhale 5, exhale 5. Okay? And keep your body still, don't move. Just notice the subtle movement that the breath creates in your spine. But inhale 5, exhale 5, and then start listening as I give you some biomechanical guidelines to create this, what I call directional flow. So when you exhale, and I'm going to have us all breathe together in a moment, but just listen and keep deepening your own inhale and exhale. Maybe go to 6 seconds if you can. When you exhale, tighten your belly from below your navel to your navel, and then continue tightening your belly from your navel to your solar plexus, so that through your exhale, the whole belly's firm. You continue breathing on your own, of course. Now, when you inhale, keep the belly firm. Don't breathe in the belly. Expand the chest. Feel the chest expand horizontally, and then relax the belly in the reverse order, solar plexus to navel to pubic bone. I'm going to say that one more time, then I'm going to guide all of us. So as you exhale, tighten your belly, pubic bone to navel, navel to solar plexus. At the end of the exhale, keep your belly firm. Inhale, expand your rib cage horizontally, and then begin to relax your belly, solar plexus to navel to pubic bone in one smooth flow. So now I'm going to guide us. We'll start at 6. Well, let's start back at 5. Wherever you are, all of you, in your own breath cycle, just stop what you're doing and inhale fully, and we'll begin on the next inhale. Inhale fully now, and now exhale. Tighten your belly, pubic bone to navel to solar plexus. And now we're beginning. Inhale 5, expand your chest, and then relax your belly in that order. Hold 2 seconds. Exhale 5, tighten your belly, pubic bone to navel, navel to solar plexus. Inhale 5 again, expand the chest, and then relax the belly. Hold 2 seconds. Exhale 5, tighten the belly, pubic bone to navel, navel to solar plexus. Now inhale 6, make it a little longer, expand your chest. Now relax your belly. The end of inhale, hold 3 seconds. Now exhale 6. Tighten the belly, pubic bone to navel, navel to solar plexus. Now once again, inhale 6, expand the chest. Relax the belly. Hold 3, feel full. Now exhale 8. Tighten the belly, pubic bone to navel, navel to solar plexus. Inhale 6, expand the chest. Now relax the belly. Take 3 to relax the belly. Hold 3 seconds. Exhale 8. Tighten the belly, pubic bone to navel, navel to solar plexus. Again, inhale 6. Expand the chest. Now relax the belly. Now hold 4. Feel like you're still inhaling. Feel full. Exhale 8. Tighten the belly, pubic bone to navel. Now navel to solar plexus. Inhale 6 again. Expand the chest for about the first half. Now relax the belly, solar plexus, navel to pubic bone. Hold 4. Exhale 8. Tighten the belly, pubic bone to navel, navel to solar plexus. Okay, we're going to make it harder. Inhale 6, expand the chest. Now relax the belly. Now hold 6 if you can. Don't feel like you're sealing a pressure cooker. Feel like you're still expanding, still opening. Exhale 8, tighten the belly, pubic bone to navel, navel to solar plexus. Do that one more time. Inhale 6, expand the chest. Relax the belly. Hold 6. Feel lifted, feel chest expanded. Exhale 8, tighten the belly, pubic bone to navel, navel to solar plexus. Inhale 6. Hold 6, feel lifted. Now we're going to increase exhale a little beyond. Exhale 10. Slow the exhale down. Tighten the belly, pubic bone to navel, navel to solar plexus. Inhale 6, expand the chest. Hold 6, feel lifted, feel energized. Exhale 10. Pull the belly in, pubic bone to navel, navel to solar plexus. Now we're going to make it a little easier. Inhale 6, expand the chest, relax the belly, come back to holding 4. Exhale 10. Tighten the belly, pubic bone to navel to solar plexus. Inhale 6, we'll do that one more time. Expand the chest, relax the belly. Hold 4. Exhale, 10. Tighten the belly, pubic bone to navel, navel to solar plexus. And then it's going to get, again, easier. Inhale, 6. Expand the chest, relax the belly. Hold 2. Now exhale, 8. Tighten the belly, pubic bone to navel, navel to solar plexus. Do that one more time. Inhale, 6. Just hold 2. Exhale, 8. Inhale, 6. Now exhale, 6. We'll do that one more time. Inhale, 6. Exhale, 6. Now, really easy. Inhale, 4. Exhale, 6. Inhale, 4. And exhale, 4. And then just release the breath, but stay focused. Keep your spine straight. Just let the breath find its own natural rhythm. Notice your state. This was a simple experience of directional flow, increasing breath threshold, and a simple, what we would call Brahmana ratio, with a little building of retention after inhale. It's late afternoon. It's kind of like British tea time. It should have lifted your energy just a little bit. So thank you. I hope that you enjoyed that. Of course, we need more time to really go deeper into the valving and all of that. But this was a taste of the science of pranayama.
You mentioned the breath threshold. Can you expand a little on more what that is and how we're working with it?
Well, normally, again, we're normally doing one complete inhale and exhale in about 3 or 4 seconds, just when we're walking around. So we started with inhale 5, exhale 5, actually. So that's 10 seconds. So instead of 20 breaths a minute, that's only 6 breaths a minute. But we went all the way to inhale 6, hold 6, that's 12, and then exhale 10, that's 22. That's something like 3 breaths a minute. So expanding the threshold means that you take more time to complete one breath cycle. The threshold is a measure of how far you can go, not one time, but over, Krishnamacharya said, over 12 times. Until you can do, if you can do one breath in 1 minute once, maybe many people can. But can you do one breath a minute 12 times? Almost nobody can. So it's not a competitive thing, but as you practice over time, your threshold expands. What that does is it builds your endurance, it builds your vitality, it stimulates your immune system, it strengthens your mind, it balances your emotions, it increases your clarity. And it's sort of magic. The problem with pranayama is you can only theoretically understand it until you practice it. But when you practice it, you will understand it. It's a guarantee. Something like that about mantra japa also. You can barely understand the power of mantra japa until you practice it. But once you do, wow, everybody who's really done it understands it.
So I know we don't have time to go into all the valves, but can you share a little bit about this sort of alternate nostril breathing and some of the right-left balancing?
So there are different paradigms. When we talk, and I'll just build a little more context. When we talk about ratio, the length of inhale compared to the hold or the exhale, the paradigm is what's called Brahmana and Langana, and there's a third Samana. Brahmana and Langana, it's like nourishing, building, restoring, strengthening, energizing, calming, relaxing, settling down, grounding. That's Brahmana is the first, Langana is the second. When we talk about the valves, the paradigm is heating and cooling. It's called Surya and Chandra. Surya means sun, Chandra means moon, but sun, Surya means heating. Also a word is Ushna, heating. And then Chandra means moon, but cooling, the word for cooling is Shitali, which is also a technique. That means cooling. It also comes to mean soothing. So there is thermal heating and cooling, and there's energetic heating and cooling, and they're different. This is not well understood. When you do ujjayi, it's thermally heating. When you do shitali, it's thermally cooling. Those are valves. But when you work with the nostrils, when you inhale left, you're stimulating the Chandra Nadi. So that's cooling, not thermally cooling, energetically cooling. When you inhale right, you're stimulating the Surya Nadi. That's heating. Again, not thermally heating like Ujjayi is, but energetically heating. And then it's even more complicated. When you inhale through the nostril, it stimulates the Nadi. When you exhale through the nostril, it sedates the Nadi. So there's the paradigms of stimulating and sedating, heating and cooling, and then Brahmana and Langana, energizing and calming. So all of those paradigms is like an alchemy that we use with the breath. And people are not generally understanding this complex science. And in many cases, even the valving is misunderstood. So people do it like this with one sealed and the other open, but that's actually not the technique. I'll save that for when we go into the classes, of course.
Maybe a next subject that would be useful to have a little more explanation around is the relationship between breathing and chanting and meditation.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. So of course, it's a beautiful question. And we've talked about the structure and we've talked about the physiology. But when we speak, like I'm speaking, you're speaking, I'm listening to your communication, you're listening to mine. So we're using the voice through the breath. I mean, there's some people like I spent some time in Norway long ago, and I noticed that they make some comments in Norwegian on inhale, like, like they say yes in Norwegian on inhale sometimes, but mostly we speak on exhale. We don't make sounds on inhale. We use the exhalation to speak. We chanting uses exhalation. So you can't separate chanting from the breath. And over my decades of working, with people, I've had many students who were professional opera singers, opera coaches, and speech and language pathologists. Actually, I've worked with all kinds of people over the decades. Breath is very important for all singers. Any singer knows the power and importance of the breath. So chanting already uses the breath. But when you chant, there's meaning in what you're saying. There's cognitive meaning, there's symbolic meaning, and they're different. Cognitive meaning, like, for example, when I train yoga teachers, we teach them a source text called Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. And the way to learn that text is to by heart it. The way to use and understand the text is to learn chanting and memorizing the chant, and then all the meaning starts to make sense. So you chant through exhalation, and chanting traditionally was a way of learning. In ancient Indian medical school, they began by hearting Charaka Samhita, which is the source text of Ayurveda, because that's where the knowledge is contained. So they used chanting to memorize teachings that were passed on from the masters. But when you talk about symbolic meaning, that's like contained in mantra, then it's a different thing. That means it creates a living relationship with the energy that the mantra contains and reveals. So when you're linking mantra japa to the breath, you can chant vocally on exhale. You can chant mentally as you inhale or as you hold the breath after inhale. You're bringing the mantra and its power deeper into the core of your being. So the most potent practices are mantra japa with central channel pranayama. And we'll do that in one of our last classes, where you're taking the mantra, and when you're using the mantra, it's the energy that the mantra contains and reveals, and you're bringing it into the very core of your being. And therefore, it's not an intellectual thing. It's a deeply transformational at a holistic level. It's a little esoteric. I hope it makes sense.
It makes total sense. I wonder if you can paint the picture a little bit of like how this practice evolves over time. So you're kind of teaching some of the foundational principles, but what opens or discloses as you really make this a part of your daily practice?
It really very much depends on the orientation of the practitioner. I work with a lot of people for whom pranayama is important because they're busy in their life, in the world, and they need to manage stress and maintain their energy. So some people don't go beyond that, and that's really useful. You know, you wake up in the morning and you don't have energy to get out of bed, and you have to perform. So pranayama can help you sleep better the night before. It can help you sleep better. And then in the morning, you can use it to build your energy to get out and face your day. So some people just go there. Even I have clients, for example, who have disc issues, you know, like lumbar disc issues or cervical disc issues, and learning to work with pranayama helps them create the axial extension that creates more space between the vertebral bodies, that along with very gentle, appropriate movements can support the healing process. So they're using pranayama for the reason of their structural stress, or others that are using it because they have digestive distress or respiratory illness like asthmatics, or people that have recovering from heart attacks. But only those who really looking to go deeper, like working actually therapeutically with people that have anxiety or depression or PTSD. It's a very powerful tool. You have to do it carefully. With some people, it's a trigger at PTSD, so you have to walk your way into it respectfully and carefully. But for those who can, it becomes a very important tool. But then for those who are interested in the inner work, creating a living relationship with the energies that are symbolized by the gods and goddesses, pranayama with mantra japa is the most powerful tool of creating a living relationship with those energies.
Beautiful. Well, Gary, it's clear that you have such a depth of wisdom and mastery in this area that it's very illuminating just this time we've already had together. And I want to spend some time now talking about your upcoming program, because I just feel like it's going to be an incredible opportunity for people to make pranayama practices a part of their daily lives in a way that really brings a lot of benefit. So Gary's going to be teaching a 7-week program for Shift. It's a brand new program. It's called Sacred Breath, Ancient Pranayama Techniques for Elevating Your Health and Consciousness, Increasing Vitality, and Attuning to Spirit. You can find it laid out in detail at the URL sacredpranayama.com, sacredpranayama.com. There are no prerequisites. You don't have to be deep on a yogic path, but although it's going to be certainly appropriate for people who are practicing any limb of yoga. Gary's got a lot of advanced insights as well. So Gary, I'd love for you to share a little bit about your intention for this program and a bit of what people can expect to come away with. And then I'll read out the module titles so you can give us a preview of what's coming in each.
Sure, I'd be honored to. You know, I spent most of my adult life, which has been most of my life, immersed deeply in these teachings and practices and working with people. And what I noticed, whether I'm working with people that have been in yoga for a long time or people that never came to yoga, the single most accessible and potent tool for everyone is the breath. And when I pay attention to what's happening, which is rare, I don't often bring my head up out of these ancient texts, I confess. But when I pay attention to what's going on in the modern world, there's a lot of new modern emphasis placed on breathing. And I thought to myself, gosh, you know, I listen, I look at what they're doing, and it's like beginner stuff compared to what the ancients evolved over thousands of years. They say they received it, actually. They didn't create it, but they received it. But it's been passed on generationally for thousands of years. So I thought part of my svadharma, part of my dharma is to share these deep teachings. My teachers are gone, and so I feel a responsibility to bring out the breadth of these deep teachings. It's so useful. It's so effective. Anybody can do it. It can take 5 minutes a day, can change your life, literally. Yeah. So since it's growing in popularity, I thought, let me take this opportunity using the Shift network to really share this with those who are interested in breath, whether it's related to yoga or not. That's kind of why I wanted to bring it forward.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for maintaining this lineage. So module 1, foundational pranayama principles to increase your energy and balance your nervous system.
So the basic idea is understanding that you can create through the breath a conscious relationship with your autonomic nervous system. The autonomic nervous system is so vitally important. Most of our illnesses, in fact, one of my students was one of the senior psychiatric pharmacologists in the world, and she helped me understand pharmacology over the decades. She told me that I don't remember exact percentage, but like upwards of 90% of the pharmacology that's prescribed for managing symptoms of chronic disease are sympathetic parasympathetic activators. Pranayama is a sympathetic parasympathetic activator. Any one of us can actually create a conscious relationship with our own autonomic nervous system. And then when we learn the tools, we can affect change in our autonomic nervous system without the need of substance. We can do it with the breath. So in this first module, I want to give you those fundamental principles about the role of inhale and exhale in relationship to understanding, attuning to, and changing what's going on in our autonomic nervous system.
Module 2, Brahmana, Langana, and Samana to increase vitality, restore calm, and balance your system.
Yeah. So it's Brahmana. It's an interesting word. You know, you probably have heard of the word Brahma, the creator God, Brahma, and then Brahman, the totality, and then the Brahmin, who's a priest. Well, this Brahmana is the same root. It means to expand. So Brahmana, it's a slightly different spelling, but it's the same etymological root, which means expansion. So we want to be able to, Brahmana means to build, expand our energy. So if we have low energy, we want to build it, nourish. It means in Ayurveda, it means nourish and vitalize the system. Langana comes from the word lagu, which means light. Light, not like dark, but light as opposed to heavy. So Langana therapy means to lighten up. Physiologically, it means eliminating stress, eliminating toxins, even evacuating, your bowel. That's Langana therapy. So a colonic is a Langana therapy. But if you have anxiety, it means calming your system down. So Brahmana means to build or nourish. Langana means to ground, calm, to purify, to eliminate. Samana, the word samana means equal. So it means to equalize, it means to balance. So what we're going to look at is what are the methods of controlling inhale and exhale to help us build energy or calm our system. So wake up in the morning and you don't have the energy you really need to get out and do your work, Brahmana practice. You come home at night and you're stressed and agitated and you want to relax, Langana, right? It's the middle of the day and you're you got to stay awake, you're tired, but you're a little stressed, Samana, to bring you into balance. So you can use these tools once you understand them at different times of day to create balance in your system.
Great. Module 3, understand the science behind the 4-part breath cycle and how to build your personal breath threshold.
Right. So that's the topic of ratio. So we started with inhale 5, exhale 5 in our exercise. And we only went to inhale 6. We didn't go beyond inhale 6, but we went all the way to exhale 10. So what we'll do first is explore each of us individually, but I'll be guiding a practice that will help you explore your own threshold. What's going on with your inhale? For most of us, not all of us, our inhale is shorter and our exhale is more comfortably longer. So what can we do to increase the length of our inhale? And how can we use our exhale and lengthen our exhale? Equalize them, learn to, at will, make inhale or exhale any length we want. So the idea is then how to use, there's a technique called krama breathing, which I'll teach in that module, how to lengthen the flow of your inhale over time through consistent practice, how to lengthen the flow of the exhale. And then how to build a little bit of retention, how to be able to hold the breath after inhale safely, but over time longer, and why, and how to be able to, the hardest one, of course, the most dangerous one is holding after inhale. The hardest one is holding out after exhale. So how you can build your ability, lengthen your ability to hold the breath out after exhale, not relying on anything else, just relying on what's within you. So that module will be very much about threshold and ratio. And it will be practices where you'll explore your own inhale, hold after inhale, exhale, hold after exhale. Get to know them. They've been with you since your moment of birth. They'll be with you till you die. Most of us don't pay attention to them. This module will be about looking deeply at our own breathing.
Module 4, ancient heating and cooling techniques to address your specific emotional or physiological conditions.
So that's when we'll go into the valving techniques. The thermal valving techniques for heating and cooling are Ushna, Ujjayi, and Shitali. The energetic heating and cooling techniques are right and left nostril inhale and exhale. So in that module, we'll explore, and this is more subtle. you'll feel it, but it's more subtle. Easier to feel is inhale as stimulating through left nostril, exhale as sedating. More subtle, inhale and exhale through left nostril is cooling, through right nostril is heating. So we're going to explore what are the teachings about the valves, when they should be used and why, and then I'll guide you in experiences using them. And also, let me add one more thing, because people don't really understand what they're for. I will teach you the authentic valving technique. I've been studying and practicing for over 50 years, and I've been teaching for at least 40 years, and in all over the world, actually. Most places I go, most people I see are not doing the mudra for the valving techniques correctly. They're missing the power. I know that I don't want to sound arrogant or anything. Please forgive me. It's just an observation. I've been initiated in this science. Most people who are practicing have never really been initiated by an authentic lineage. And in my experience, I'm going to say this, I know I'm putting myself at risk for saying it, but in all the years that I've introduced people who've been practicing yoga, pranayama for 15 years, even before they met me, they're like OMFG, which is a Sanskrit expression. That's a joke. They feel it within one practice. I'm not making that up. When you apply it correctly, if you're experienced, you'll feel it immediately. Better if you learn it the right way from the beginning. So for those who have never done it before, it won't have that impact as it will you'll have the benefit of it. But for those who have done it for years, decades even, the wrong way, they feel it right away.
That's great. Module 5, create a conscious relationship with your autonomic nervous system to manage stress.
So 5, 6, and 7 are application. 1 through 4 are the theory. 5, we're going to take all of this theory and show you which technique, which ratio, and then maybe what simple movements we'll do to prepare for it, some simple breath-centric asana to manage stress. So you'll have an experience where your whole system will be deeply calm and relaxed. So it's the clinical, let's say, application of this theory in relation to stress management.
Module 6 is pranayama practices for increasing energy and vitality.
So this one is the opposite, right? And I'm sure all of you have experienced stress. So this one is for fatigue or low energy, maybe because you've been sick and you're recovering, or all kinds of reasons. We're experiencing burnout. So where the previous one, module 5, will be about stress, this one will be about fatigue and low energy. So how to use the breathing techniques, the ratios, what are the valving techniques, and the right ratio and right choice of asana and breath adaptation in the asana to build energy, restore vitality, strengthen your system. So they're opposite, like they're showing two poles in the application of the same techniques, or there'll be different adaptations of those techniques. So you really understand how to use them for yourself.
Finally, module 7, attuning to and merging with spirit through pranayama practice.
So module 7 is a taste of the deeper inner teachings of yoga. In that module, I'm going to introduce you to what's called Sushumna breathing, or central channel pranayama, and mantra japa with the central channel. So central channel meditation is a visualization, and central channel pranayama is a breath-guided visualization where we bring the breathing into the core of our being. And in this practice, we'll then link the flow of the breath to a particular mantra. And we'll be doing mantra japa coordinated with the breath in the central channel, which means that we'll be bringing the energy and meaning of the mantra into the very core of our beings, the inner sanctum of our beings. So the central channel, the breathing, and the mantra are like a portal that will connect us from where we are in the gross physical plane through the subtle plane to source, back to the source where spirit emanates from. So a very deep inner practice with central channel or Sushumna pranayama with mantra japa. That will be the 7th unit.
Well, what a blessing to have the entire science of pranayama distilled into this very practical 7-module program to really be able to apply the key foundations even if we're not doing an advanced yoga practice. So thank you for pulling this together and for really synthesizing so much of your life practice. So I'll share a little bit more about it. Again, the whole program is laid out at sacredpranayama.com. It's, as we said, it's a 7-week program. You're going to have 7 90-minute live sessions with Gary, which gives you a chance to ask your questions directly. You also get recordings for every session, both video and audio, as well as word-for-word transcripts to work with, study, and highlight. There's weekly exercises for home that you can apply and really make your own. There's Facebook community group to support you and deepen your experience. And on the page, you'll see a number of extra bonuses designed to enhance your journey. There's a PDF guide from Gary called Prāṇāyāma, Unique Gift of the Yogic Tradition. There's also a video teaching and guided practice from Gary called Pranayama and Meditation, Langana ratio 6-2-12-2. You want to share a little bit about the philosophy behind that?
Well, that's, again, Langana is calming the system. So it'll help anybody who's feeling anxiety come to a deep inner stillness, relax. And if anybody who isn't, whether you're feeling anxiety or not, come to a place of deep inner stillness. Beautiful, simple practice.
Great. Well, that's just one extra bonus. And there's a special bonus that's available for folks who sign up right away. We like to do this as a way to encourage you to really take the time to read through the page at sacredpranayama.com and tune in with your own inner knowing. If you get the sense that this is the right next step for you, then you're going to get an extra bonus for signing up right away. This is a video teaching and guided practice from Gary called Yoga for Managing the Stress Response. Gary, you want to share a little bit about that special video teaching and practice?
Yeah, it's an important one. I did actually my organization, American Video Yoga Institute, did a study that was funded by Aetna Insurance Company many years ago and got written up in medical journals afterwards. It was one of those statistically significant stress management programs. So this practice comes from that study. And it's just so important in this time of stress all over the world. And so this will be a very useful practice to have to help you manage your stress.
So really great stuff, Gary. And clearly you have so much wisdom to share and really embody that which you're teaching. So it's going to be an amazing program. And you can find all the details again at sacredpranayama.com. We've kept the investment for this program very accessible. It's just 3 payments of $128, or you save 10% when you pay in full with 1 payment of $349. The course is going to begin May 30th and run Thursdays at 10 Pacific, 1 Eastern. But even if you can't make the live times, you can still get the full value with the recordings, the transcripts, and the community as well. And I also encourage you to go to the page and really read through the testimonials because I always find that it gets at the essence of what makes a teacher unique and special. So Gary is a master teacher, illuminates the Eightfold Path, great intelligence, goes deeper where you might squirm or be wrong or certainly challenged, but that is where the new learning and awareness is. I learned so much, felt like I was being initiated into yoga practice that was authentic and carried the true energy of this ancient wisdom and science. So it's really clear you're in very seasoned hands and really loving hands, and you're going to really be initiated into a deeper way of working with the breath that is based on thousands of years of yogic science and deep personal practice, and it can really benefit you in myriad ways. So it's going to be a beautiful program, and we're really grateful to be partnering with Gary on it. So again, all the details are at sacredpranayama.com. So Gary, we're at the end of our time together. Really loved being with you, and anything that's still on your heart you want to share with folks who are considering diving into Sacred Pranayama with you.
First, let me just say how much an honor it is to work with you, Stephen, and through your organization Shift. So thank you for the opportunity. The only other thing that I really want to say is, sometimes we think about these practices overwhelming. We're too busy. We don't have time. Or like, I have to watch the next Game of Thrones or whatever. I don't have time for pranayama. Listen, if you spend 5 minutes, which think about how many 5 minutes you sort of dwindle away every day. If you spend 5 minutes with your breath consistently over time, it'll change your life. That's a guarantee. So please don't be intimidated by all this. When you leave, you'll have an understanding about your breath and through the breath, about your own life, that you'll have so much more ability to influence your condition in a very short time. You know, we used to joke, people used to make fun of what our Vinyasa, and I said, they said it's mini yoga. I said, yes, because we get more from less. When you understand what these tools are and you begin to practice them, you get more and more benefit from less and less time expenditure. So it's a great investment. I hope you join me. Oh, and the last thing is, again, this is a little known teaching. It's hidden. The lineages were interrupted. I had the great honor of being with an authentic master that was passed on generationally. So I hope that you join.
Beautiful. Well, the authenticity really shines through. So thank you, Gary, for that authenticity and for the offer. And again, if you feel called to join Sacred Breath, you can find all of the details at sacredpranayama.com. And you're warmly welcome to join. And if you sign up right away, you're going to get that special bonus as well. And that special bonus is pranayama and yoga for managing the stress response, which is a video teaching and guided practice from Gary. So thank you, Gary, and thank you all for joining. Many blessings.
Be well, everyone. Thank you.